coming back to 20 years later and seeing that a lot of what my recommendations were still very valid was very rewarding to me.
Why did you decide to become a financial planner?
Well, I think it's kind of like everybody, money, right? I mean, everybody wants to make lots of money. At least initially, that's what I had thought. When I first started in the business, I guess it was pre-2000. It was still a little bit of what we kind of called old school, right? And the mentality around financial planning back then, it was still, and we still are quite junior and quite new to the financial industry, as it were. Let's looking at, let's say, side by side to accountants, for example, they've been around for hundreds of years. So our particular role is a little bit newer, but I would say money was the main reason. I worked hard ever since I was a kid. I started my own businesses at 12 and 13 years old, shoveling and shoveling snow and cutting grass, enough to actually amass an amount for a down payment for a house, which I ended up using later on. But that's neither here nor there. I worked hard my whole life leading up until the point when I'd met my boss at the time, and he introduced me to the concept of, if you want to make some real money, right, you can come work for me. And at the time, it was for a financial planning firm. But as I started to progress through my career, and as I started to get through that first year or second year, I really noticed that helping others was my motivator. So it slowly gravitated away from making money, which obviously is still very important, but helping others. And that was my focus and the main reason, I think, why I stayed in the business. One of the most gratifying things that I noticed was, the same firm that I'd started at 20 years prior, come full circle 20 years later, I actually ended up working with one of my same clients that I brought on 20 years before, funny enough. So what's interesting about that is I looked at the report that was in their file from 20 years ago, and I go, Snavy plan's pretty good. Who did this one, right? I'm not, not to my own horn, but I'm looking at it going, these are a lot of the similar things that I would do. I look at the front of the report. Sure enough, it's me. It was my report. It's the report that I did for that client 20 years ago. What I found interesting about that situation, about that realization was that a sound financial plan, even though it may have been revisited, coming back to 20 years later and seeing that a lot of what my recommendations were still very valid was very rewarding to me. It meant that I did the right thing initially for the client, and 20 years later, it still stood strong.
That's great. It stood the test of time, obviously.
Very cool. Very cool. And a lot of financial planners don't really have the opportunity to see that far in the future. A lot of us are able to write concepts and provide plans and provide recommendations, but we don't see a lot of the time the end game of what that actually means, right? So it's really rewarding to kind of see that. But
when you think about your work you do with clients, is there anything in particular you really enjoy doing? Is it the actual, like in that example, you gave the NALA plan example. Do you actually like building plans, or is there some other type of task you like doing specifically for your clients?
I kind of thought about this when you posed the question, and there's a few things. I think the first thing is building relationships. I think first and foremost, I think stepping outside, what I'm enjoying most, about working with my clients, I think is the ability to build those relationships that I never believed in working with family or friends, bringing them on as clients. But what ended up happening over time is those clients that you bring on that you've worked together for such a long time, they certainly become your friends. Focusing on the financial planning is the second piece, I would say, that I really, really enjoy, providing a holistic approach. Having the client, if you're asking the right questions and following the financial planning principles, you're narrowing down, and the client is self-identifying the solutions that they require. So rather than focusing on a product-based assumption or product-based recommendation, by doing a sound financial plan for the client, we're tackling a holistic point of view. Along the way, we're getting little yeses from those clients, and those clients then are also identifying, hey, look, I've acknowledged all the way along this line, all the way along this process, that this is probably what's best for me. So when it comes to finding the solutions at the end of this sort of, process, it's quite easy. It's not a matter of what they pick, it's, when they pick it, as far as whether it's insurance solution or investment solution or what have you. The last aspect for me in financial planning, within financial planning, would really be the retirement planning, the income planning or cash flow planning in retirement, the taxes and the estate. I think, given the amount of generation, like not only just the fact that we've got so much money changing hands and there's such a debt load on the younger generation, a lot of that money is going to disappear. And I don't think a lot of planners realize that. It's very important that we start to engage and discuss with our clients now, obviously the retirement, the income planning, the estate and the taxes, to have an efficient transfer, to maximize what's passing on to younger generation. So those are all my passions. So I'd say relationship first, focusing on planning, and then embedded within the planning would be the retirement, the cash flow planning within retirement, and the estate and taxes. Those are really my loves.